BMC Psychology conducted a study and found that constant pressure experienced by FOMO was a direct predictor of increased anxiety and depression. FOMO causes some individuals to want to stay up late with social experiences. People believe that they're going to miss out on the best moments of their life, potentially the most enjoyable experience, and in turn the result was that these individuals saw higher levels of anxiety. Those who experience higher levels of FOMO obviously are going to tend to participate in this odd negative feedback loop within themselves where they tend to withdraw, oddly enough, from social experiences. For example, the study showed that people who report feeling uncomfortable in social situations are actually more likely to experience FOMO because they are perceived others as having that rewarding social interactions while they feel disconnected. It's pretty crazy, right? So people who experience FOMO a lot, like people who really, you have to think about yourself, right? If you are somebody that feels this way, especially in social settings, you're more likely to have a higher increased levels of anxiety, but you're also more likely not to even want to participate in social settings because you feel that you're not going to interact socially well with people. But let's move on to a second study. This study was called Fear of Missing Out, Prevalence Dynamics and Consequences of FOMO showed some important key findings. This is a meta-analysis, by the way, so it has a lot of information. If you guys don't know what a meta-analysis is, it's just a research paper that is done as a collection almost of different research done by other individuals or companies or universities or whatever, but it grabs research that already exists on the topic and it pulls them together into this meta-analysis that is essentially like the collection of the research, and it's going to dissect those different research articles or papers and bring forth like the data to show a common theme or differences or whatever. So the meta-analysis of research on FOMO indicated that people with higher levels of FOMO tend to be more dissatisfied with their own lives. They will often feel that their experiences are not as fulfilling as what others are doing. So even if you go fishing and somebody else goes fishing, you're going to feel that, or that person would feel that their experience of fishing was a lot better than yours or that person, right? This is called emotional dissonance, by the way. This is also very true with social media posts where people highlight, the best part of the post and then you have these people who have a high levels of FOMO and they idolize this and they think of all the crazy happy stuff that this person, the streamer, whoever is doing on the internet and that they're not doing. This is eventually going to lead to an emotional burnout. And that's because some people, especially like people with high levels of FOMO, they want to be in the loop of everything, of every experience, of anything that happens mentally or emotionally or physically. And that is very tolling on the body, on all those same three things within yourself. And eventually it could lead to some higher levels of anxiety, like we saw, and that this connection between these two research articles indicates, right, that higher levels of FOMO increase anxiety, you even retract yourself from public settings, and you're going to have a worse view of your own life when compared to others. So we can see from these two different articles that there's going to be a profound negative impact on your mental health, particularly through anxiety, depression, and loneliness. FOMO often triggers cognitive and emotional stress, and individuals will constantly compare their experiences as with others and it being worse than that person, which in turn leads to chronic dissatisfaction and even a result from social withdrawal, which we spoke about, and isolation, which further exacerbates mental problems, right? And social media does provide this continuous stream of negative information to individuals, and eventually it just becomes emotional exhaustion, and it's so consistent and it's so fast and it's so much information that people who have high levels of FOMO it's overwhelming. So let's go ahead and dive into how to prevent this feeling. I'm sure we've all to some point or some extent have felt, that sensation that everyone is going to have a better time or everybody is having a better time, living a better life to an extent, and probably experiencing more excitement than you are in that certain situation or if you were in that scenario. And honestly, this is almost impossible to avoid to an extent within today's world because of social media. You see your friends' awesome vacation that they're hiking or they're in the mountain or they're on a boat, and you hear about network events that maybe you weren't invited to. And FOMO can kind of make you feel like you're missing out due to all these experiences and events that you're seeing. But what FOMO actually does is it steals your joy, it steals your peace more than anything, and it's almost stealing your self-worth by focusing your attention on what others are doing, what other people are focusing on, rather than allowing yourself, you, me, the individual, to appreciate what we have and what experiences we've experienced. But how can we stop FOMO on its track and build, a more fulfilling life regardless of what others are doing? The biggest challenge, in my opinion, regarding FOMO is that it convinces you to live your life based on external validation and, unfortunately, comparison. Again, you measure your success, your happiness, and your self-worth with what other individuals are doing. This leads to anxiety, as we spoke about, and you kind of stop tracking your own personal growth for the mere satisfaction of trying to view others and their current state of experiences and living life. This is going to be fueled by your exposure to those people's highlights and how social media essentially prevents this endless stream from not being in your face. It's going to present it to you over and over again. You have the promotions, the vacations, the relationships, the marriages, they're all on display for everybody to see. But the fact of the matter is, you're watching a highlight reel of an individual's life. That's the truth, is that those highlights that you're watching, those videos that you're watching, they're highlights. They're not the actual life. You don't know the struggles, the setbacks that happen throughout that. You're just seeing like the perfect moments. And not understanding this can cause FOMO in your life to lead you to make impulsive decisions, such as splurging on something you don't really need, attending an event because everybody else is attending, and it eventually prevents you from investing your time and energy into becoming a better version of yourself simply to make people think that you are in a certain state of life or in a certain stage or that you have money or whatever it is, but you're not working on yourself internally. Rather, you're working on yourself externally. The first thing we need to do is we need to shift our focus inward and within ourselves. You don't want to ask what other people are doing. You need to ask yourself, because you are the most important person in your life, or you should be, in my opinion. You need to ask yourself, what do I really want? What makes me happy? Where do I find actual joy? You need to spend time thinking about your own goals, your desires, and your values. And then you start living your life according to those three things, according to your values, your goals, and your desires. And when you do that, when you outline those things, and then when you live by that, you start living according to your own priorities as opposed to somebody else's. And here you kind of feel, FOMO lose its grip on you because you're not chasing somebody else's version of what success or happiness is. You're chasing your own version of what success or happiness is. So set the personal goals that matter the most to you, and they don't have to be, big or glamorous or anything like that. They should just be aligned to your own values. For example, one of mine is to just help other people, is to help people who are in need. That's a goal I have, and that's something that I like to do every month, is to donate money or maybe participate in an event for nonprofits. But that's something I like to do, and I don't do it for external validation. I just do it because that's where I found that I feel very happy, I feel joyful, and I like contributing to those types of things. And it can be something even smaller than that. It can be maybe just waking up early and working out. That is the goal, and you don't have to necessarily focus on other people's lives and seeing where they're at with their workout routines. As long as you do it and as long as you're seeing progress, what else matters other than your own actual success? Another good method to combat FOMO is to practice gratitude. You don't always want to look at what you don't have and what you're missing out on. Rather, you do want to focus on what you do have. You should really take a moment to reflect on the things you're grateful for, whether it's your health, maybe your relationship, or even your accomplishments. Gratitude helps you shift your mindset from something that is scarce, right? Your scarcity mindset, to one of maybe more abundance. And that makes it easier for you to appreciate your journey and where you are than to envy somebody else's. And for example, for me personally, I'm going to assume that, people who watch these videos are not going to be individuals in third world countries, right? So for me, I don't know if people have traveled to, I don't know everybody's experiences, but if you've never been to a third world country, if you've never actually seen the struggles that some people live through day by day, if you've never seen that big divide from poor to rich, and it's right in front of them. Like, it's not like in the United States where you have to travel to a different zip code or whatever. It's literally right in front of them. It's like, imagine you live in a house or a hut or something, like you live somewhere very poorly, and then in front you see a mansion. There's people in parts of the world that live in those conditions. And if you reflect on yourself and say, you know what, there's people who have it this much worse than me, and they're pulling through and they're grateful for what they have, I think, you could be grateful as well, or I should be grateful as well. I've done that. I've seen those differences, and I guess that's something that I can apply because I've actually seen it, and it's very impactful and it's crazy to me. So that's what I use. If you haven't, maybe it'll be a little bit difficult, but I suggest that maybe you volunteer and you put yourself out there, and you may be able to feel more gratitude towards your own life when you see how much other people struggle and how maybe your impasses or your negative emotions are kind of small in the grand scheme of things. And then I think one of the biggest tips here for FOMO is to take a detox from social media, because let's face it, it's probably the biggest driver of FOMO to begin with. You're always going to be watching people's videos, people's images. It's easy to feel like you're missing out when every time you pick up the phone you see something that is pretty overwhelming sometimes, So limit your exposure to this. I have timers on Instagram, on Facebook, and every day I remove the limit anyways. So I'm not one to preach, I know it's bad, but Apple has this thing where you can set a limit. Now, if you are more disciplined than me and you can actually follow that limit, then that's good. I have mine for 30 minutes too. I mean, I think I need to increase that to maybe an hour, to be fair, but it is what it is. But I do have moments where I do take a detox from social media. I will put my phone away when I'm doing some research, or when I'm doing this, I put my phone somewhere else, or during work. There's moments where I do take a long break from social media. And if you're somebody who you feel, look at your statistics, look at your activity, your social media activity. If you have a lot of hours in there, cut that down. It'll reduce your FOMO, and it'll make you, focus on yourself a little bit more. Another very important factor here is to be present in the moment. When you're constantly worrying about what you could be doing or what others are doing, you miss out on the beauty of what's happening right in front of you. And this comes into mindfulness, really, and it's just being engaged in the present. It's something that I struggle with a lot. And what I think about here is how Sam Harris speaks about it, right? How you always have that little voice inside you speaking, and it's trying, like when I'm talking to somebody, and he mentions this a lot, when you're talking to somebody and then you hear that voice in your head and starts thinking the randomest things, you start thinking about like, what am I gonna eat for dinner? And dude, it's like 12 p.m. What are you talking about? What are you gonna eat for dinner? This guy's telling you about something very important, and that inner thought of you, or that inner thought in your brain, is completely trying to derail you. I am working really hard on that, especially because I want to be present in the moment. And I think that this is a very important thing when you talk about FOMO, is if you're present, you don't worry about anything else but what's happening in front of you. So my biggest advice to you is try to incorporate this mindfulness practice into your daily routine. Focus on being present, focus on actually what's happening. And you can do this through meditation like I do, through deep breathing, or simply by walking without your phone. That's going to kind of help you break that habit of constantly looking at what's next, or what are these people doing, or what's happening over here or there. It's kind of like a stop to it almost. So lastly, FOMO can be a powerful force. It's pulling you away from your own life and making you feel like you're one step behind of the curve. But if you shift your focus inward, if you practice gratitude, if you detox from social media, and you embrace mindfulness, you can really break that grip. Remember that FOMO is rooted in what? It's rooted in external validation and external comparison. You comparing yourself to others. But where does fulfillment come from? Not from those things. Fulfillment is going to come from within yourself, when you feel fulfilled. And you have to answer yourself truthfully on that. You don't want to chase an endless dream. You want to be fulfilled on something that is achievable based on your values and your ethics. And once you do this, you probably realize you're not missing out on much, or really anything, to be honest. You're exactly where you need to be at this moment. So the next time that FOMO starts to creep in, just remind yourself, life isn't about keeping up with everyone else. It's about living fully and authentically on your own terms. Thank you guys for watching.